Welcome to In the Arena of Success. This podcast is where courage meets opportunity. I'm your host, Henry Beeman, and every week we step into the arena with visionaries, innovators, and trailblazers from all walks of life. We dive deep into the heart of success and uncover the strategies, the struggles, and the unwavering spirit of those who overcome. The real question is, are you willing to step into the arena and fight for your success? Because in this arena, success is not a destination, it's a journey, and it starts right now. All right. Thanks for being here with me today, sir. I have on the podcast today Colonel Greg Gadson. He started his military career as a linebacker at West Point, commissioned as a field artillery officer, and commanded all the way up to battalion command when his convoy in Iraq was hit by an improvised explosive device, and he lost both of his legs above the knee. But that didn't stop him. He continued on, drove through his recovery back into active service, and culminated his career commanding Fort Belvoir, Virginia as the garrison command. Post-military, he has starred in a couple of movies, TV shows, and written several books. So I'm excited to have this conversation with you today, sir.
Well, thanks, Henry. Thank you for having me on, and it's good to see you again.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. So we're going to start off with the lightning round question. The first of those 6 questions is, where's your hometown and what is it known for?
My hometown is Chesapeake, Virginia, and what is it known for? Ricky Rudd, race car driver.
That's great.
I pulled that one out of my, what?
Do you prefer cats or dogs?
Dogs.
That's a common answer. What kind of music do you like to listen to?
Old school rock, R&B. Yeah.
Okay. Taking it back.
Yeah.
What are you currently reading?
Nothing.
That's great. This is a little shift in gears here. Who is your biggest inspiration in life?
My wife.
Absolutely. And what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Stay humble.
That's good. So take us to the beginning of Greg Gadson's story. Where does your story start for you?
Well, it starts with my parents, like all of our stories. But I just in the context of our country's history, I'm the first offspring of my parents, the oldest of 3 kids, oldest of parents that were born in the Jim Crow South in the 40s. And so, it never really struck me till recently after we were celebrating the recognition of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. I was born in 1966, so think about that. And, I finally got all the rights of every citizen in the United States. So it hasn't been that long, and I don't see that from a negative perspective at all. I say that from a perspective of I was raised by parents who weren't born with the same rights that I was born with. It taught me to work hard, to be relentless, and not to make excuses. And so, graduates of Howard University. My mother was a teacher, and my father was a pharmacist, and I was not stellar academically, not because of maybe my potential. I just wanted to. I was a jock, and I wanted to be an athlete, and I wanted to earn a college football scholarship because I didn't want to ask for a dime from my parents. I wanted to do it on my own. I was going to. Thought I earned a scholarship to the University of Virginia. They actually offered one to me, but then sort of wanted to go in a different direction. So I didn't have a plan B. Fortunate that a college football recruiter from West Point came to my high school, not to recruit me, but another gentleman, classmate of mine, and my coach suggested that they take a look at me. I took my 5th and final official visit up to West Point, and I asked if they played Division I football. They said, yep. I raised my hand. I said, I'm in. There was a bit of a chip on my shoulder. I had to enlist. I go to the prep school because I needed to strengthen up my my academic credentials,
Right.
which I did. And in the summer of '85, I went into West Point. graduated in '89 and met my wife there, got commissioned, as you said, as a field artillery officer. And for the next 25 years, I would serve in the Army.
Wow, that's incredible. That's quite the upbringing. And as you're talking about your parents growing up in the Jim Crow South, I live here in Jackson, Mississippi. And just
Yep.
the other day was downtown Jackson on what's called Farish Street. And there's a little
Yep.
restaurant called the Big Apple Inn. And you can
Hmm.
sit in the same booth that the Freedom Riders sat in as they were
Wow.
planning that ride to change American history, to change the history of the world. And the same booth is still sitting there today in the same restaurant owned by the same family. It's an amazing thing. And I think that probably boils into a lot of your resilience and your resolve, is that upbringing from those parents that have gone through those sorts of things.
Definitely, Henry. One of the things that I'm super impressed and proud of my parents is that as they shared their experiences, and certainly not all of them good in a society like that, that it was never out of sort of an anger or distrust, but really out of being our best selves. Certainly standing up for yourself. Again, uh, I wasn't raised a bitter young man. I wasn't raised to hate. I was actually raised to love and respect everyone, and at least give everyone the benefit of the doubt. Don't assume preconditions, and so I think that has been a big part of of how I processed the world, how I dealt with adversity, and all its forms, and just sort of been forced to. I think build resiliency. To me, resiliency is not a skill. It's a character. It's a
Mm,
characteristic. Every day, I say you get a chance to build on it. You get a chance to to make it more of who you are. And so, when you're faced with adversity, it allows you to stay consistent to who you are if you built that into your character.
absolutely. And before we get to your thing of adversity, tell me a little bit about those formative years as a new lieutenant. You graduated from West Point and you're a platoon leader, company commander, leading troops. What were some of the skills that you learned there that helped you be successful later in life?
Well, first and foremost, I just have to acknowledge just a tremendous blessing of having some non-commissioned officers around me that really took me under their wing, that cared about me, and sometimes told me the stuff I didn't want to hear, or not sometimes told me the things and that certainly has been influential, I think, in the person and the leader I've became. I had an NCO that was wounded during the first Gulf War Desert
Mm.
Storm. I was a second lieutenant platoon leader, and we were fortunate to get Sergeant True evacuated, and he didn't lose his life or lose a limb. But it's something that stuck with me because I felt that we were not really prepared. We were not up to our best, if you will, and I took that personally. I took that on. It's something that I failed as a leader to live up to my responsibilities, and I just sort of promised that I wouldn't ever let something like that happen again. When ironically, 16, 17 years later, I'm wounded in Baghdad, and the very men that I was responsible for making sure were trained are the ones that had my life in their hands, and I'm here today talking to you because of their abilities.
Wow. And you hit on something that I harped on quite a lot when I was a company commander. I talked a lot about taking care of people.
Yep,
And everyone thinks that taking care of people is giving them, half the day off on Friday. But to me, taking care of people was 12-mile forced road marches and extra sets and reps on those critical battlefield skills and combat lifesaver and those things that when they're put in that situation like you were in, you want that muscle memory to react and respond without having to think
that's
about
right.
it.
Yeah, taking care of soldiers is making sure they're prepared. Yeah, sure. When they've got personal challenges, or you need to give them a break. That's part of recognizing that, we're not machines, we're holistic beings, but our number one responsibility is making sure that they're prepared. I mean, that's the essence of our profession, and that's the essence of being a professional.
So you're in Iraq and your convoy gets hit by an improvised explosive device. What's the first thing that goes through your mind?
I don't know if I can use those words or I should use those words, but but let's say I chose some choice words out of the profane dictionary, because that's exactly what I did. I knew exactly what it was, and the blast actually blew me out of my vehicle, and so I can remember, kind of going through the air, hitting the ground, and coming to a rolling stop on my back, but very quickly that sort of pissed off anger transitioned to I'm hurt and this is serious. Um, and then for me, a prayer. Simply saying, asking God not to die.
So since you bring up a prayer there, how did your faith play a role in that process from that moment of injury all the way through the end of your recovery?
Yes. Oftentimes, Henry, I mean, I could ask you this question, like, how strong is your faith if you're a person of faith? And it's one of those abstract things that I think is difficult to measure. You can sit here and say, my faith is strong. It's the strongest. Well, relative to what? Relative to me,
Mm.
I mean, how is it that you measure it? And I'm not sure I could have measured it. I tried to pray every day. We would, before we even went out on patrols, we'd gather in a circle, and it was sort of random prayer type of someone who was going out. I often tried to read my daily bread when I got to my office, first thing in the morning, just to devote some time, to my faith. So I don't know, but I do know that my last thought was to God. It wasn't about my family. It wasn't to anything. It was God. I don't want to die here. And I all rights you could say that it was a miracle that I'm alive. I went through 129 units of blood just that evening, 6 to 8 hours, and went into arrest or died 6 different times. And so, by all rights, you could say it's a miracle. But what I say the real miracle for me is that after losing my legs or losing one leg and deciding to take the other, I'm out of the ICU. I'm up on Ward 57 and Well 3, which I know you're familiar with. Was really a peace. Of all the emotions that I had, and I had a lot of them. The one that was absent was anger,
Mm.
was hate, and I was at peace from that perspective, and I honestly, you could have put the person in front of me that did this to me and given me a weapon, and I had compulsion, I had no desire to even score, and so looking back at that retrospectively, I was already on a path to real healing, because I had accepted. And that's what our faith is. That's all part of it is about accepting things that we can't understand. Because when you accept something and then it doesn't hold you back, you're no longer encumbered by it. And so I began to heal very quickly.
Wow, that's incredible. And a lot of it is due to the men and women that you trained, because you're the battalion commander here at the time. You're the guy that's supposed to be in charge, but your team stepped into action and took care of not only you, but any of the others that were injured as well, and got you off to safety. And you end up on Ward 57 at Walter Reed in Washington, D.C. And what was it as you were going through that recovery that stands out to you?
Well, um, one of the things that stands out to me is just all of us that were there that were wounded. I mean, I like the joke called if you recall the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer in the North Pole, the land of misfit toys. Yeah, we were all missing something there, and there were lots of us.
Yeah.
In the hundreds, and so I think what I recall is that you just sort of recognize that you're not alone. And there's a lot of people going through this journey with you. Some, you know, uh, clearly ahead of you because of, the time between their wounds and where they're at now. And, I think there was hope, there was optimism, but there was also, you know, what did right look like? What was over the horizon? There was certainly no vision that I had early on as to what lied in store for me.
Yeah, that is one of the most incredible experiences I've had in my life. It was one of the most challenging, serving as a wounded warrior ortho trauma nurse there at Walter Reed. But there's
Yeah,
so much resolve, so much resiliency, so much optimism and positivity. And I remember one guy had a sign on his door that says, "If you're not positive, don't come in my room." And like
mhm,
things like that
mhm,
are just so
yeah, yeah,
motivating. That's the way, that's the mindset of the men and women that we care for. The men and women
yeah,
who sacrifice for our country aren't folks who want to lay around and say, okay, woe is me, something terrible's happened to me. Of course, there's the stages of grief that you go through, and you go through, a lot of folks go
right,
through that anger phase and see folks progress out of that into the majority of the people, almost every single one that I've talked to, from my experience in that field, has gone on to be an advocate of some kind to help other people. And
right.
it's just an incredible, incredible thing. So, what was it in you that was your drive to say, I'm going to return to active service after this?
Well, I think it was, it's part of it is, as we talked about earlier, just sort of a resiliency, sort of like, you know, I I can't quit. I mean, I'm a soldier, and I still felt like a soldier, and I wasn't defined by what I didn't have. I was defined by what I did. You don't know what it's ultimately going to look like, but at the same time, you're willing to try. And that was just what I was going to drive on with. That's all I needed.
Yeah, and that's definitely an uphill administrative battle because the system's not necessarily designed for you to be able to return. So, what was that struggle like for you, and how did you persevere and fight through that?
Well, there is a program. The Army's program is called COED, Continuation of Active Duty, or Continuation on Active Reserve, or COR for the reserves. And, it wasn't something everybody just advertised, but I said, I just expressed that I wanted to continue to stay in. I said, look, I can do a lot of things. So you really aren't paying me for how fast I can run. That's not relevant. And so I want to make you tell me no. And that's what I kind of started out with
Oh,
this, you know, I'm going to make you explain why I can't do. I mean, I felt that I was deployable. I mean, I'm a light colonel, but where am I going to work? Probably at the top. I can read reports. I can do all those things are still, my experience is still relevant. And so that was sort of my sort of going in sort of argument. And I would discover the co-ed program, and so I had to go through all the medical board stuff to be found unfit, which I thought was like, okay, oh shit, I'm unfit, my legs are gone. But I had to go through it, and I did, and then I was able to get significant chain of command support that I could still make a contribution.
that's incredible. I like your statement. I'm going to make you tell me no. I see a lot of
Yep.
people in today's world that face resistance or face adversity and think it's time to throw up the white flag. And just
Yep.
the simple statement of, I'm going to make you tell me no, that's pretty powerful.
Yep. Thank you.
So you get selected to continue on. Tell me a little bit about what happened throughout the rest of your career there.
Right. So as I was going through the process, I had a former boss who was Brigadier General Gary Cheek at the time, who had come by and said, "Hey, Greg, I would love to have you, serve as the director of the Army Wounded Warrior Program." And I listened to him, but my initial kind of thought about it was, I don't want to do that just because I got wounded. I'm not going to become the wounded poster child. I want to do something else. And so I initially said no. But as I began to sort of communicate and feel like maybe who I could represent. I actually went back to him and said, is that job offer still open? And he said, yeah. When I got approved for continuation active duty, I think in January of 10. I was actually in a war college fellowship, and so during my recovery, I went to grad school at Georgetown University, and I did a war college fellowship
Wow.
at the Institute of World Politics. And so I got approved to stay on active duty in January of 10. I finished my fellowship in May or June of 10, and I became the director of the Army Wounded Warrior Program in June or July of 2010. So I would do that
Wow.
job for the next 2 years, and then and during that time, I did get promoted from lieutenant colonel to colonel, and ultimately I was selected. I came out of the command list for brigade command, an alternate the first time, and the second time around, or next year, I came out as the primary for garrison command at Fort Belvoir. So I finished my last 2 years, so June of 10 to June of 12, as a garrison commander at Fort Belvoir, as you mentioned, and I retired in September of 14.
Okay. And somewhere in that time frame, there was this little movie that came along.
Yeah,
Tell me about that
yeah.
experience.
The little movie was called Battleship.
Battleship.
Yeah, and it sort of set the stage for why I even got asked to be in the movie. Was going back to '07. A few months after I was wounded, a classmate of mine asked me to speak with the New York Giants, who was starting out 0-2. They'd come to Washington, D.C. to play the then Washington Redskins. Ultimately, I spoke to the team. They ended up winning that game, and that was the first of 11 consecutive road victories they had that season, um, which culminated in the New York Giants playing the undefeated New England Patriots in Super Bowl 42, where I got a chance to address the team the night before that game. And so, of course, the Giants won, and so that sort of put a spotlight on me from a perspective of people were interested in me as a communicator, me talking. What did I have to say? Peter Berg, the director of Battleship, a New Yorker and a lifelong New York Giants fan, on the basis of what happened, actually asked me to be in the movie. Well, I had never acted before in my life, but I sort of had this perspective of what do I got to lose? So
What was that experience like for you?
it was, I would say, the experience was very different, but at the same time, there's a military discipline of a movie set, and they go about the profession very precisely, and so although the skills and the operation were different, um, the sort of discipline and the structure was sort of familiar, and I just listened, and uh, I built a tremendous trust with the folks on the set, and ultimately that trust allowed me to open my emotions, open my heart, which is really the essence of acting.
So there's two things that you mentioned there that I wanted to hit on.
Yeah.
One of that is building and establishing trust, and the second one is it was your effectiveness as a communicator that even got you considered for that role. So what are some things that folks can do to improve their personal communication and engaging with other folks and use that to build trust?
So the world we live in is a lot of email and text, and we rely heavily on those. I mean, look, that's how we got connected, right? But I think, to me, trust is about a relationship, and you can't build a trust in a two-dimensional world. And so you got to communicate. Just as we're communicating and I'm speaking, you're also getting my body language, you're getting my mannerisms, whatever you're picking up on. And so that is the sort of three dimension that gives us it gives you or whoever's viewing a much fuller appreciation of how this person's communicating. Is it genuine or is it fake? Is it authentic?
Mm.
And so I encourage the leaders nowadays to really stop relying on text and emails to communicate, but for them to know you got to spend some time and create contact time where you can actually build and accelerate, I think, a
Mm.
manner of trust because they know who you are.
Wow. Yep, absolutely. That's powerful. So let's take a quick minute to transition into a little bit of what you're doing now. I know you have a new book out called Finding Waypoints, A Warrior's Journey Towards Peace and Purpose. And I think that book seems like it covers a lot of the stuff that we've just recently talked about with your journey through working with the giants and into the motion picture. So tell us a little bit about that book and what you're doing now.
Yes, so I appreciate you bringing that up, Henry, and you're right. Our podcast has talked a lot about what's in the book. The book is about my journey, but it's really about healing. It's about resiliency. It's not just mine, but my family's journey and resiliency. It's about understanding what we have the power over and what we don't, and how we focus our energy. And so, like anything you read, you relate it to your life, and I hope that people are able to take some perspectives from it that help them in their lives.
That's powerful, and anyone who's facing adversity and challenge should definitely pick up a copy of this book, Finding Waypoints, because finding peace and purpose are two of the most important things that you can do in life.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I almost say I coined a phrase, but I have a kind of a phrase or a thought that, life's about being present. And what is that? What does being present means? That means you're not encumbered by something in the past. You're not holding on to something that happened yesterday, and you're not living a day that you're not promised. You're right where you're at. Again, going into leaders, be where you're at. So many times people are talking about what their next job is or what's over the horizon. And you know what? Every one of us one day will have a tomorrow. So just learn to focus your energy on where you're at today, and not to give it away to yesterday and not to give it away to tomorrow. And I argue that if you can be present, now you have a chance to be your best. You can be your best self. And those two things to me equal peace.
That's really powerful. Finding your peace through blooming where you're planted, if you will. Blossom
That's
right
right.
here where you're at right now. That's a
Yeah.
great piece of parting advice.
Yeah, junior leaders will say, "What's your best job, or what was your best assignment?" I go, "The one you're in.
Mm,
The one you're in is your best job." And if you have enough wisdom to understand that, be where you're at. Be where you're at.
that's powerful. Well, sir, thanks so much for coming on today. I really appreciate your time.
Henry, thank you for having me. You're a great interviewer. I appreciate your great smile and positivity as well. And so, thank you for what you're doing.
Absolutely. Take care.
You bet.
Did you like what you heard on today's podcast? If so, do me a quick favor and hit the like and subscribe button. That way you'll stay updated on all the new content that I publish. Also, visit me on social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, and tell me what you want to hear more about. I love to hear your comments. That way I can continue to produce content that you love and enjoy. You can also check out my website, henrybeeman.com.